Hey everyone, happy Saturday and welcome back to the Alberta Roundup. I'm your host, Rachel Emmanuel. We are finally in March and I am very excited that spring is just around the corner. I know you Albertans love your winter, but I'm sure some of you are tired of it by now. Let's take a look at what happened this week in Alberta politics. NDP leader Rachel Notley continues to post on TikTok while her federal counterparts delete it. The Alberta government says they're going to introduce legislation to protect firearms owners. They also said a provincial police service is off the table, at least for now. And of course, that came out of Budget 2023, which was tabled in the legislature this week. All that and more happening right now on the Alberta Roundup. Okay guys, let's take a look at this first story here. This is a massive story coming out of the province this week. If you thought that once the COVID-19 pandemic ended, it meant that pastors wouldn't be arrested arbitrarily anymore, you were wrong. Pastor Derek Reimer of Calgary's Mission 7 Ministries, which works mostly with homeless and vulnerable people in the city's downtown core, was informed on Wednesday that he faced arrest and charges. Those charges were related to a protest that broke out at a children's-friendly drag story hour. Video footage shows an altercation breaking out at the drag queen story hour. We're going to play that clip for you right now.
Voice memo. Okay, we don't have our cameras up.
We are now calling the police. Stop. We have the police coming, so it is your choice to leave or deal with the police.
Very abusive in there.
We are going to...
For love is love.
Hey,
love is
guys.
like very hateful, very abusive.
Why are you disrupting the program?
Because it's wicked. It shouldn't be in there.
Hey, as a parent of kids in there, you need to get out.
Then early on Wednesday morning, Calgary police visited Reimer's home and told him that he faced arrest and 2 charges related to that incident. Police returned later in the day and he was in fact arrested. Rebel News has the video.
I'm good. I'm gonna put you under arrest for outstanding warrant. I'm doing everything.
And she said he's in custody.
It probably doesn't surprise you that, like some of the arrests of pastors that happened during the COVID-19 pandemic, this story too is gaining international attention, and for all the wrong reasons.
In Canada, of course, that's all disappeared. Canada has now become an atheist totalitarian state with amazing speed. And in Canada, it's now a crime to object to sexualized drag shows for children. You're not allowed to say a word. Late last month, a pastor in Calgary was violently thrown out of an all-ages, in other words, for children, drag queen story hour for daring to object to the sexualization of children.
Moving into our next story here, you guys are going to enjoy this one. Alberta NDP leader Rachel Notley continues to use and post on TikTok, even though federal counterparts, and that includes federal NDP leader Jagmeet Singh, are deleting the app after a federal review found that it contained high security risks. Notley posted a video to TikTok as recently as Tuesday. That's one day after Jagmeet Singh announced that he would be taking a pause from the device following that federal review. In a statement, Singh said, quote, "When security and intelligence agencies express concerns about digital platforms, Canadians expect elected officials to treat them seriously and take the necessary action." You guys might remember that in 2020, former US President Donald Trump sought to ban TikTok in the United States. At the time, the Trump administration alleged that ByteDance, TikTok's parent company, had a close relationship with Chinese authorities. TikTok, of course, denied the claims, but that didn't stop a recent Canadian review, which found that TikTok poses an unacceptable security and privacy risk. Now, that didn't stop Notley from posting a video to TikTok on Tuesday in which she criticized the United Conservative Party government's education spending. The Alberta NDP leader has just under 9,000 followers on the controversial Chinese social media platform. Here's a look at one of her important videos.
What's your drink of choice?
A Negroni.
I was going to say the same thing. Yeah.
Magliato.
Mm.
With Prosecco in it.
Oh, stunning.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose it's understandable that Notley is still on TikTok. How else would we get content like this, for example? And of course, my personal favorite, the short jokes.
it shouldn't be hard because, you know, I am relatively short. And just so you know, like this is a thing that happens in our caucus, Drew. Short people get what they want. So we will have these lovely little things for short people to stand on, and all the tall members of the caucus are just going to have to kind of make it work. Okay, that's just part of me being leader.
Now I asked the NDP if they plan to discontinue use of the app, considering pretty much everyone else across Canada is. And of course, they didn't respond to my media request. You guys might remember that the NDP have a policy not to have dealings with True North. So while they won't answer me, I think it's time for you guys to start emailing your NDP MLAs and asking them why are they still on TikTok when everyone else is jumping ship. And that includes the Alberta government, who announced on Wednesday that they would no longer allow government employees to have TikTok on government devices. Moving into our next story here, I know a lot of you will be very enthused to hear about this one. The government has said they will table legislation to protect firearms owners. On Wednesday, Government House Leader Joseph Scow said the firearms legislation would be one of 3 the United Conservative Party government plans to push forward in the next month. Scow said a number of Albertans have reached out to him and his colleagues to say that federal firearms legislation, which would confiscate legally purchased firearms, is overreaching. He said, quote, "As a province, we're taking action within our abilities to protect firearms owners. We're enacting this bill because it's important that we're defending Albertans. We're defending firearms owners in this province, and we're making sure that everyone feels the government has their back." When pressed, Scow would not release any of the details associated with the bill, saying those will come at a later date. Moving into the controversy of the week, Alberta Finance Minister Travis Taves says that a provincial policing service is off the table, at least for now, as the government tabled Budget 2023 on Tuesday in the legislature. Taves explained the decision in an interview with Global News after the budget was tabled. We're going to play that for you now.
All right, finally, before I let you go, I do want to ask this. There is no money in this budget for a provincial police force, though there is some cash for municipalities to create their own forces. We talked about this the other day with Grand Prairie. But does that mean an Alberta provincial police force is essentially off the table or dead?
Look, this government is interested in one thing when it comes to enforcement. That's better enforcement, less crime, more security and safety for Alberta citizens. That's one reason why we're increasing spending in public safety by 13% this year. We're looking for the best bang for our buck to increase enforcement, reduce crime.
So is that a yes? It is off the table?
It's off the table.
Speaking of the budget, we should probably dive into some of these numbers in case anyone missed it. The $68.3 billion budget is an increase of about 4% in government spending from the current fiscal year. New funds will result in about 7,600 new government workers, mostly in healthcare and education. The new budget would also leave the province with a $2.4 billion surplus, which the province plans to put towards debt. The Canadian Taxpayers Federation gave Alberta Premier Danielle Smith's first budget a stamp of approval. Committing to balanced budgets, debt repayment, and saving for a rainy day shows this government is serious about not repeating the mistakes of the past. Okay guys, and finally, it's time to move into our weekly comment roundup. Last week, we talked about Edmonton's 15-minute cities proposal, and you guys pretty much resoundingly said, nope, we're not interested. Here's what some of those comments looked like. Annette said, I think if you have the option of having everything close to you and not needing to drive, that's great. But if it's forced on you to live that way and you no longer have the option to drive to other places, that is tyranny. User Jason Crosser wrote, first, I should say that I'm in Calgary, so I'm watching with a somewhat detached interest at this point. I have no problem, of course, with having most services being available within a 15-minute walk or bike ride. My concern begins if they start penalizing people for leaving their zone or restricting the type of vehicle they're allowed to drive. I believe freedom to move and to choose is important. Education, not legislation, should be used to influence people's behavior and then let them decide for themselves. I think those were some fair comments. A lot of people said they liked the idea of a 15-minute city, but they didn't even want to give the opportunity for the government to potentially enforce people staying in these zones, considering what happened during the COVID-19 pandemic. I also believe in the free market. I think that people should open businesses like stores and restaurants wherever there seems to be a natural fit for one and wherever they think they could make a go at their business. I don't think people need to be mandated to have stores in certain areas just so that we can have these 15-minute zones or districts, so to speak. Okay, guys, that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that you have a great rest of your weekend. I will see you next week, and God bless.